All right, what's up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast interview where every single week I interview top entrepreneurs, top real estate professionals, strip top badasses out there dominating their space. And today, guys, we've got another special guest here on the podcast, somebody that I've got to know really well over the past few months. He's a top producing realtor, top real estate coach, and has built a 225 plus agent organization. So really stoked and honored to have Jeremy Kane on the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, brother.
What's up, Joshua? Super excited for GSD mode. Love the brand. Love everything you've done for a long time, and it's been awesome getting to know you since the Wolfpack move.
Yeah, no, it means a lot, man. And yeah, it's I've been learning a lot from you. We've been masterminding a lot. We've been, having some partnerships together. And but before we get into all of that and the things that you're doing today, I'm always intrigued in our guest journeys that led him here in the first place. We're on the clocks. Like, what did you do before real estate and what actually got you into real estate?
Yeah, actually, I got a psychology degree, and I was going to save the world. Right? I got directly into private corrections. The only thing I knew was that I didn't want to go back to school to get my master's and PhD. So the psychology degree was pretty limiting at that time. So went into private corrections, ran a halfway house, did that, kind of mentored, people that kind of found a little bit of a rough past and path, and that was okay. The company that I worked for then got acquired, and so there was an acquisition, and there was some drama there. But ultimately, the success rate was brutal, right? It was
Yeah.
during the big meth crisis, and it was just really difficult to help these people kind of get to that next level. So I got into teaching, ended up teaching some at-risk kids. Did that for 5 years, and at one point looked at my soon-to-be wife, girlfriend of probably 8 years at the time. I was like, we got to make some money. My dad was a real estate broker for 20 years prior and was still in it. And I called him up after the big crash, 2013. Was like, what do you think? And I didn't really know what he was going to say, but what he did say was, "You'll absolutely crush it. Let's go." So that's how we kind of got to where we're at, and got into the business in July. Did 65,000 in GCI that first year, and hit six figures every year since, multiple six figures shortly thereafter.
Yeah. So, dude, I'm curious, man, because look, I study and have studied a lot of sales, but man, I have learned so much more that's impacted my ability to become good at sales from psychology, human behavior than I ever have studying sales.
hmm
How is that experience, education? How do you feel that that's helped you in your real estate business?
Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted that human connection, and I've been, intrigued by the human emotions and the mind and everything that's going on, obviously, with my past and corrections and, kids with learning disabilities throwing computers at me and things like that. So I've always been operating in a fairly, helping other people in a fairly high stress environment for them. And so I think real estate was just kind of a next step, right? And you have to understand emotion to, be good at this. You could be an amazing salesman and have no idea what other emotions are, and you're going to struggle, at least in the short term. And so understanding emotions, picking up on social cues, visual cues, and ultimately just understanding what the people are going through, I think is huge. And I haven't seen anybody that's going through quite what I saw early on in my
Yeah.
career, with the family, with the stress, with the criminal backgrounds and those kind of things since I've been in real estate. So still helping people, still focusing on that. But I come in and I'm very aware of people's emotions, their countenance, everything about their being comes into play. And so how you react to that is, very critical, I think. And it's allowed me to be very good talking other agents down, talking clients down, major inspection negotiations and all of those things. I think that's where it really comes into play because you have to remove yourself from the emotion as the professional, as the agent.
Yeah. Our job to be the unemotional professional. And as a team, right with my team, and not really a joke because we kind of meant it too, but it was like, man, a prereq of being a realtor is to have some training in psychology.
Yep.
You know, um, I don't know if this is true or not, but I read it at one point that said that buying and selling real estate is the second most stressful time of a person's lifetime the number one is having to plan the funeral of a death one, like and going through that process. But then right below that, dude, is buying and selling, real estate. So it is an emotional time, and being able to navigate those emotions. And like you said, being that unemotional professional is huge. And we can maybe go circle back to that and talk about that later on. But I want to go back to your journey here of, like, I know your business today is built off relationships, connections, social media. Was it always that way? Like when you did your 65K in GCI, your first year, was that, I
Mhm.
mean, were you cold calling? Were you hitting YouTube, or was it always been kind of networking sphere of influence?
It was always networking sphere of influence. The very first deal was the only deal that I did with my dad. Out of the gate, it was a lady that I helped paint a mural at my dad's bar when I was 5 years old. Right, so it was always kind of that. I had the luxury of living where I grew up. Right, I live 15 minutes away from where I went to high school, elementary school, middle school, and I went to northern Colorado, which was an hour and a half north, for 4 years for college and came right back. And so I had the sphere locally. I still serve that northern Colorado market as well. Um, and now it's kind of cool because we're growing agents in that area as well. So maybe I won't have to drive up there quite as much. But ultimately, it was always that, right? I was 29 years old, so I wasn't, super young or older. Like I was in the thick of it, right? I was really involved with the school. I actually coached at a different school than I taught at, coached high school basketball, and so I was really involved with that. And there was alumni that I didn't coach, but I'd gotten to know through that program that were ready to buy homes, and so it just kind of happened that way, and it was a really good situation for me to be in, right? I had my dad who understood the business, who made, connections. I still use the same closer he connected me with, some of the lenders, some of the inspectors, so that was nice. But yeah, as far as clientele, it was mainly just sphere of influence. I was Buffini trained, so I went on
Yep.
the Brian Buffini, train as far as handwritten notes and monthly mailers and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I started out my first 10 years at Remax, and it was
Yep.
Buffini and Craig Proctor. That's what they
Yeah.
kind of, at least my local franchise, that's where
Yeah.
they kind of indoctrinated us on, which was good. I don't want
Yeah.
to say indoctrination is negative. It's just,
Right.
all right, dude. So then when we look at sphere of like even those that have a big sphere of influence, it's like right out of the gate, man, it is a slower build.
Mhm.
You know, um, what did you do out of the gate? How did you tap into it? With your sphere of influence, because I'm sure that that's that fear of like, well, dude, I don't want to be that annoying realtor bugging everybody. Like maybe there was, maybe there wasn't, but I know a lot of agents have that. So how did you start tapping into that right out of the gate? Because 65, I don't know what the average is, but I'm guessing that's probably 10 times more than the average realtor
Right.
does their first
And
year.
it was 6 months. So
Oh,
it was
6 months.
July to December,
Yeah. Okay. So
65K. So yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
So you're on run
Yeah.
rate to break well over six figures your first
Yeah.
12, year
Yeah.
if it would have been a full
Whole
year.
year. Yeah. Yeah. So I honestly I actually learned a lot about myself in this moment that I actually really enjoy helping other people build businesses. Right? I'm not like a super hyper local numbers guy. I know my numbers now because I was told at, a conference sometime that, know what your numbers are right away. Right. But I had a passion to just for community and helping people grow businesses. So honestly, I actually just did a YouTube video on my channel about this. I went to Facebook Instant Messenger, right? And my goal was to build a vendor list. And that's how I approached other people. I said, "Hey, how's it going? Long time no talk. What are you doing for work these days?" And, my goal was to find electricians and handymen and those kind of people that I could drive business to because I knew that if I could be the, hub for resources, then people would call me when they needed to buy a house or they had a question about real estate or, they would refer me. So I was on a personal mission just to build out professional relationships with industry partners, community partners, and go from there. I had some friends that were starting their entrepreneurial journeys in different businesses, restaurants, those kind of things. And when you find those people that kind of align with you and think like you do, then it's really easy to bounce, ideas off each other, bounce referrals to each other. And I also recognize that when I give my HVAC contractor a referral, he's probably profiting 50 bucks,
Yeah.
right? When he gives me a referral, I'm probably profiting $7,500 at the time, right? So there was a give take there, and I knew I had to give and pour in as much as I could. So once I kind of had that established and I had my people, then it was, on to kind of the clientele and becoming the connector, right? So making it known that I had a person doing collabs on social media with these people, bringing them on my lives and those kind of things. Facebook groups, right? If someone's like, hey, I need a painter in a Littleton, Colorado Facebook group, you're dang right, I'm going to throw them Hunter, right? And so that's kind of how I grew that up. I also owned a home at that time. I bought a house in 2009. And so we had to fix it up a ton. So I developed contractors within that, right? I still use the electrician that rewired and put a new service in that first home. So I was actively pursuing these relationships so that I could, ultimately help them build their business. And I knew if I got the entrepreneur to, appreciate me giving them referrals, they talk to a whole nother circle that I don't touch with my Facebook page or my sphere. So that was kind of the master plan there, and it worked pretty well.
Yeah, I love that, dude. So the focus was just, hey, man, I'm just gonna go see how I can support, help other people, help them grow.
Hmm.
And the law of influence, most powerful, or I'm sorry, the law of reciprocity is the most powerful out of all the laws of influence.
Yep.
You know, like when you do something nice for somebody, it's like they're looking, how do I, they're looking for ways to repay you and help you back and support you back.
Yep.
Um, and I know that that's which we'll get into later too. That's how you recruit these 20, 225 plus agents too.
Yep.
Is
Yeah, just
just
flip the script, dude. Redid it did it the
yeah,
same way. It's
yeah,
it's kind of crazy.
yeah. So then, all right, man. If you don't mind me asking, I know now today you're balancing production plus supporting all these hundreds of agents that you have. But like, what was your best like individual agent producing year, like unit count wise?
52
Okay.
was my best 603 GCI, and that was the year I came to EXP actually.
Yeah. And that's crazy, dude, right? Because so many people
Mhm.
that get this mindset of, okay, like a referral only relationship business, like, they kind of correlate that with staying small.
Yep.
Oh, if you're doing 6 deals a year, 12 deals a year, but you built this thing to,
Yep.
I don't know too many individual agents
Yeah.
out there. I'm guessing that that's in probably the top five or
Yeah.
maybe even
40.
top 1% of individual agents.
Yeah. 49 of the 52 were from sphere of influence. 36 were from past client referrals within that 49.
Yep.
So I mean, that's what I say all the time. Like, people always are like, oh, you can't scale that way. I'm like, well, how many houses do you want to sell? Right. Because I was an individual agent and actually only had a TC for half that year. So the profit margin was pretty well. And once I hired a TC, I realized I probably should have had it a lot. But I was hovering. I was 47, 48, 47, 52, right? And once I hit that 52 one a week, I was like, okay, I'm good. Like, I've made it. Like, we're kind of on autopilot, bringing stuff in, which was good timing for the transition. But certainly, you know, if you want to scale to more than 52, maybe that's not the thing, but and it wasn't anything special. Like, I just had general touches. I wasn't, crushing client events like, some of the teams out there do, where I had client events here and there. I would try different things. I would send out football schedules. I tried a bunch of different things, but it certainly wasn't a well-oiled machine outside of me just connecting and caring and engaging with people on social media, congratulating them for their kids graduating high school, those kind of things, and being kind of omnipresent in my ability to discuss what's going on in the market and those kind of things on social media.
So if we were to, chunk this down, because I mean, if we honestly, dude, I don't want to say it's the ideal way to build your business because
Hmm.
ideal is whatever that person wants and whatever's the
Yep.
way to get them there. But when I look at this, man, it's like, okay, 52 deals a year, but dude, you're not having to go out there and do open houses.
Hmm.
You're probably never had to pick up a phone other when they reach out of,
Yep.
hey, Jeremy, can you help
Yeah.
us go buy or
I
sell
pick it up when
something?
it rings.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
you got business coming in, you're not having to
Yep.
cold call, not having to do all of those things. Like, I mean, it's a much more enjoyable plus,
Mhm.
buy back a lot of time, energy, because I know for me, it was like half my day when I was, an individual agent was just spent on chasing business. I'd
Yeah.
have, 6, 7 hours a day of just pounding the phones, attacking it, hunting, hunting, hunting. Where if now we're, I guess, farming or whatever the
Yep.
analogy is,
It's a
you
volume play. It's a different volume, right? Like I can have 5 meaningful conversations with a business owner, a past client, and those kind of things, and I'm good, right? I know that
yeah.
those back to the Buffini, the A, the B clients, I know those people are the ones that I need to hit from time to time as far as just checking in, breaking bread, doing those things. And I mean, I did it very strategically, so I was where my feet were, right? I tell new agents, build where your feet are, right? My daughters are in competitive gymnastics. My daughter trains, she's 9 years old. She trains 12 hours a week at this gym, right? My other daughter's right behind her, trains 4 hours a week on different days. So we're there a lot. I can sit in there and do some work and watch them do their thing. And also, I mean, I've pulled 3 deals out of that gym this year, right? And then it's just a kind of give and take play, right? Oh, here's $1,000 for the booster club. Then everyone's like, oh, Jeremy's the realtor everybody needs to use because he's going to support the booster club. And building community is fairly simple when you're just present where your feet are.
So let's just say you got a new agent that partners, that joins with you,
Mm-hmm.
and they want to start building this up as, one of their strategies, or if their only strategy, or one of them, whatever. But like, what do you start breaking down? Like, what do you start telling them to do? Like, is it kind of like funnel? Like, okay, reach out, connect with them on social. Then you have a posting strategy for connection. Then, yeah,
Yeah.
like, kind of walk me through or walk us through like what
Yeah,
that would
I
look
mean,
like.
I have a course that they have access to, so that helps. And essentially, the course is exactly how I built my business. It
Yeah,
has industry partner relationships, all that stuff. So I give them that, and probably the foundational piece of that is in pillar one, video three, and it's what I call a sphere web. Right? I grew up in the '90s, and essentially all of our creative writing was based around putting something in the middle of a circle and having
yeah,
little webs out and drawing these things. Well, a sphere web is, for me, I'm in the middle, right? Where do I interact with people? Who are these people that I need to really dial in, and know? Who do I need to pour into that they have their own web that I don't have access to right now? But if I pour into them and I feed them referrals or I do whatever they need, then they're going to tell that entire web around them. So sometimes I mean, LinkedIn kind of formalized this with their first, second, third connection, but that's essentially what it is. I literally take a piece of paper out, draw my name in the middle. Here's who I know. This person's connected, right? Maybe they're not the connector. Maybe it's a church and the pastor's there on the first connection, but maybe the pastor's kind of older, or maybe whatever it is, but the youth pastor is super involved and super out there on social and super, whatever. So I need to get to that person. So how do I get to that person? I have the relationship with the pastor, the youth pastor, whoever it is, like that's who I need to go to. So you work on those connections and you work through people for introductions. And essentially you get to these hubs of, I mean, they're gold mines really, of people that are talking to everybody that comes through that church, for instance. It could be the same as like a baseball team for your kid, right?
yeah,
Maybe the coach is cranky, super focused on strategy and coaching the kids up, doesn't want to talk to parents. Well, maybe the team mom is the connector that you need to, make sure you're pouring into, supporting, doing those things, and that's how you do it. And if you have a visual and you're like, okay, I don't have anyone to call, I did my 5 calls today, no one answered or whatever, my lunch got canceled because they're sick, then you can look at that web and you'd be like, okay, I need to reach out to this person to get to that person, or I need to reach out to this person just to check in. And so that's kind of the basis of how it's done, and it's very visual and it's very realistic to most of us, because right when I said what I was describing, you knew exactly what I was talking about.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so the cool part about this is, and what you did early on versus what I didn't do early on is I wasn't intentional. It was like I just wanted to add everybody to my sphere of influence. I
Mm,
become friends with them, funnel them in somewhere, stay in touch with them, but I wasn't intentional of, okay, who are the people in my market that have influence and have their big
yeah.
webs,
Yep.
or, their own, SOI wheel.
Right.
Um, so then from there, okay, now you're intentional with these relationships. And I know you've got, like it would take hours and hours and hours to break all this down, but just to give us kind of the big points on the most
Yep.
important elements or the big points, at least of the what, what to focus on. So then from there, how are you starting? Like, how do you reach out? Is it about real estate or is it just
Mm,
going back to what we talked about earlier of, hey, how can I
yep.
support you?
Yeah. Or, I mean, it was also the social media Facebook boom, right? Where no one was really hesitant to put anything on there because we didn't really realize what we were doing. So I had it all, right? I had all the information. So if I'm on my sphere web, I can say, okay, I need to reach out to, you know, Rilia, who's my godmom, whatever, ultra connected person, right? I'm going to go to her Facebook and I'm going to say, what's going on in her life? Oh, she just had a grandkid. Like, how's her daughter doing? You can see that stuff. So you can reach out on a more personal level at that point through a direct message. Or, you can just say, or I'm going to go to this party for, this person's graduation, but I know that the ultra connected person is the parent, right? So I'm going to do a little bit of research on them before we show up, right? Like we do with some of the agents that we know, right? If we're having a meeting with a bigger agent, we're going to know a lot about them or, those kind of things. So just doing a little bit of background research was really easy for me because it was the Facebook boom, right?
Yeah.
So I had that. I'm also very well in flow. I have a lot of friends. People talk to me, whatever. I'm a support system for a lot of people. So I kind of knew and could stay in connection with that as well. But that was kind of the big piece is either have something, and it goes like this was before I even understood the ninja Ford concept, family, occupation, recreation, dreams. I just kind of went straight to the occupation if I didn't have anything else. Because naturally, if you ask somebody what they're doing for work these days, they're going to ask you the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And so you can kind of push that off a little bit versus, hey, I'm in real estate. Do you know anyone who wants to buy or sell? I'm never too busy for your referrals to tag Brian on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So then, and then from there, like, okay, this is kind of, setting up for that initial conversation, but then, it's not like a one and done. Yeah,
mm,
right. Like if you look at the overall real estate game, it's get people to know you, like you, trust you, be aware of what you do for a living, stay in touch and frequently, and keep your message from frequently, and your business grows.
yeah.
So then from there, then are you funneling them into, okay, making sure that we are connected on, let's just say Facebook or Instagram, whichever
Yep.
platforms, and then like a consistent content creation, posting strategy that's intentional,
Hmm.
along with, you know, handwritten cards,
Yep.
phone
That kind of
calls.
stuff, inviting to parties, going to their parties when you get invited, like those kind of things, right? The stuff that, I talked to, actually, I have a new agent in Ohio who's my cousin, and she's like, well, I'm going to a baby shower for the first time with, the other side of the family. She's like, I wouldn't go, but now I'm a realtor. So she got the memo. But um, the, I mean, I was active on social media. I'm a sports guy, so I would talk about that. I would, go back and forth. I try and stay out of politics as much as I can. But so that was kind of that piece. It was just general, posting. And then in 2020, January of 2020, I was at an event, right? It was just a class at a title company. And I basically sat there and I decided for the last time I was going to be told I needed to be on video. Right? Like, which has continued now. Like, I still hear it 5 years later. Agents, you need to be on video. And so, what I did that day is I went home. I had a pamphlet on my desk from one of my top industry partners, Nicole Ruth, who's the number one lender in Colorado. And it was just tips for investing. Like, it was like 8 reasons to invest in real estate, right? So I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to call it Why Invest Wednesday. I'm going to go live on Facebook and so on. For the next 4.5 years, I went live every Wednesday but two. One I was in the middle of Lake Powell with absolutely no service, and one was a Christmas. And so I was going live, but to go back to the original piece of me DMing people, checking in, knowing them, unbeknownst to me, the algorithm shows your posts more when you have a conversation with someone in the DMs. I know that now. And so they were seeing that why invest Wednesday, right? And it started out as, okay, this is because my story is after, what I didn't touch on is I bought my first house when I was 19. When I was in college, rented it to my buddies, have owned real estate ever since, cash out, refinance that one. That's two rental properties, and I sold that one 1031. I own a couple duplexes, short-term rental up in the mountains. So I was able to leverage that zero down house into 7 rental doors. So I have a passion for that. And so I was able just to talk about my investment journey, right? I had been there. I had, the kind of market czar and Nicole talking about, these strategies. And I just went from there, right? Why Invest Wednesday turned into market updates and why live in Morrison, Colorado and Littleton, it turned into like a YouTube channel basically.
Yeah.
But, that was a huge piece of it. Just go live, no edits. You're live, it's posted. You don't have to take that extra step of listening to it, editing it, deciding if it's good or bad. Like once you hit live, it's there, it's posted, it's good to go. And people just started eating it up, right? I became the person who knew everything about the market. Every time I go to a listing appointment, it's like, Jeremy, what's the price? Like, we've seen your social media stuff, we've done whatever. And like, we're not going to argue with you on the market because you talk about it all the time. So it's not the most exciting content, but it was just market knowledge and people respected that and it made my job easier on some of the other things where we get tripped up a little bit.
Yeah. You became the authority in
Yep.
their eyes.
Mm-hmm. And they saw all my stuff. So, and then I continued to post around it, and I have 3, pretty daughters and all the things, that helps a little bit now too. But that's really where it came from.
What are the biggest mistakes outside of like, like you said, okay, for you committed this the last time I'm gonna be told to get on video when you weren't doing it. So like outside of just not posting, not getting on video, like what are the biggest mistakes that you see agents, let's just call it today, making that's prohibiting them from having the success and the results that they want with social media? And we're talking organic, right? Not paid.
Yep. I think it's the inability just to get something out there, the perfectionism, and you don't have to have the camera facing in. That's what I tell my agents now. Like, have the camera facing out, have something moving that's, recognizable. Put your voice on it if you're scared to, be seen or whatever. But that's the biggest thing as far as that goes. The other mistake I see is that we're trying to build a TikTok following, an Instagram following, a YouTube following, a Facebook following, all with one post, one, strategy. And I think that that's cause and effect of the Social Agent Academy and kind of that piece. But, our good buddy Mike Sherrard, like a little known fact about him is he didn't start on YouTube, right? And he didn't start on YouTube until he had 10,000 Instagram followers. And that was kind of, his bread and butter. Just so happens once he hit that, he did start YouTube and has obviously blown up there. And that's where he still focuses. But I think that that's a piece of it that people don't focus on. And so part of my course is just do one at a time for 12 weeks, get consistent at it and do it. Right? And that goes for anything. Right? If you're going to try an open house strategy, don't just do 1 or 2 open houses and be like, "Oh, this isn't working." Like you
Yeah.
have to hit it hard for 12 weeks and do it at, full on, full out, plan it, not fly by night. Hey, Friday night, can you do an open house? Sure. Take every open house. Like you have to have a plan and a strategy to do it, and you have to do it and execute for 12 weeks to even know, right? Much like calling. You pay for Red X or you get a call list. You're like, okay, I'm going to call. You make it 10 calls and you quit. Like you're not going to be very good, right? You can't even get to that 1% from 1 out of 10. Right? So that's the part that I think people don't give it enough time, or they're focused on all the different shiny, formats and Instagram channels and all of that.
If you could pick two, but only two social media platforms, not counting YouTube, because I look at YouTube as not really social media.
Database
Like
kind of.
that is just
Yeah.
media, right? So If you could only pick two that you find to be most effective for real estate, what would those two be?
Facebook and Instagram for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Facebook, number one by a long shot. Maybe it's me. I mean, I don't buy into no one's on Facebook. Uh, the people that I know are on Facebook typically, I don't know, there's a pretty big generation of wealth transfer coming up that is mostly on Facebook.
Yeah. I mean, if you
So,
look at like, okay,
yeah,
if you go to our kids
yeah.
and I talk about Facebook, oh, dad, only old people on Facebook. My kids, something. I'm like, yeah, but who's buying and selling real
You
estate?
aren't transacting.
Yeah, the
Son.
average
Yeah.
age of the average buyer today right now is 58 years old. Average age of the first time new buyer now is 39. And Facebook has now surpassed LinkedIn as the platform for the affluent. So it's like where the money's at, where the demographic is at. Maybe that'll change over time, but it is, I agree, dude. It is the juggernaut right now.
Yeah. And when Facebook was created, the 39-year-olds were 16,
Yep.
right? And so that was the thing. You needed a college. I mean, there was scarcity there with that number. It's kind of, I haven't thought about this, but with being 16 years old, I was 18 and I had a college email and I had to have a college email to get a Facebook account. So when those people came up, I think by the time they were in college, they didn't need that anymore, but it was a scarcity thing. Like they had to be on it. And so everybody was on it, like
Yeah.
by the time they were 18 in college, whatever. And so that's a key point, but also it's much more user friendly. Every grandma, grandpa, whatever is on it, at least to see their grandkids, right? And that's where people don't really understand. They're like, well, no one's on Facebook, they're not posting. Well, people don't have to be posting to raise their hand so you know that they're looking for real estate. But if you're posting stuff about real estate, about your life, about, your kids or whatever, right? Those older people are going to see that. And they don't have to be posting to be taking in the content.
How many, how many hours a day? Because on my mind, I'm always thinking just time, right? So I'm like, okay, well, if I'm posting, creating a couple posts, when I say post, I'm just referring a piece of content that we're uploading to social media. And there's different names for different ways that we post. But okay, so if I'm uploading a couple pieces of content a day, I'm having my 5 meaningful conversations like you talked about earlier, then logging into social media, maybe commenting, wish them happy birthday, commenting
Yeah.
on certain things. I'm like, okay, that probably can't take more than a couple hours a day.
No, it doesn't. And that's the thing, right? And people still to this day are like, how do you do this? How are you an icon agent and growing your organization? Well, it's because most of my leads are incoming to me, right? I'm not hunting anymore. That they're just calling me, or they're from agents that have gotten out of the business, or what at referrals from them. So I mean, I spend very little time on lead generation. Now on content generation, it's a whole different story, especially when you throw YouTube in there. But I'm just trying to put out content that's okay, right? That people are understanding. And my most of my working day is focused on creating different pieces of content because now I have a VA that can post it and they can optimize it and they can do all of that. So I'm putting it out there. I'm batching content so it's ahead. And then all I have to do is remember to post every so often about what I'm doing in my life, right? Going to a Broncos game, going to watch my daughter compete in gymnastics, going out to a restaurant and local with my wife, or, whatever that is. If I can just capture some of those moments, it doesn't have to be a long, elaborate thing. It could be a story, it could be whatever, but your name's constantly being pushed out there.
Now with real estate recession, if we want to call it that, because transaction volume went from what 7 million annual home sales, like 3.5 million last couple of years. So lowest transaction volume that we've seen since 1995. So there's just lesser people that are willing or able to buy and sell today.
Mm.
Have you had to ramp things up, or you just have so much momentum now that you're just staying consistent with the same thing and still getting great results?
Yeah, I mean it's different for sure because coinciding with that, I've also altered my focus to more of a coach leader, that side of it. So this year I'll probably do 25 to 30 deals, right? Hit my icon and go from there. I was the guy that iconed in 4 months and 5 months and 6 months, and I was like, dude, I don't need to do this anymore. So
Yeah.
I just like said, I'd like to icon in 10 months or 11 months. What happened? Icon in 10 months. I was like, let's see if I can push it. Icon in 11 months. So certainly it has gone down. Now the volume has trickled off a little bit. I think my high mark was 26 million or whatever. But now I'm good at 15.
Yeah.
If I get 10 to 15 million, like I'm great. Because obviously in that these last 5 years, the price points have gone up, as well as I'm 41 years old, so my sphere is ready to kind of take that next leap, right, into home ownership, because the average first time home buyer when I started was 33 to 35. So now they're 6 to 8 years in, and go from there. So that's kind of the basis of that.
Yeah. And you're also, making
Yeah.
a really solid chunk off of your rev share from 225 agents too. But okay, what about agents that you're seeing that you know aren't in a position because
Hmm.
you've done really well with structuring your rentals
Hmm.
with growing agent count, so you have residual revenue from other sources. But let's just say that doesn't exist. They can't afford to go from 50 down to 25,
Hmm.
or have that their business take a step back. Like what are you walking them through today in this current market climate to do? Is it just really like doubling down?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really understanding the market. I think because now social media is such a, easy thing to get your hands on, there's so much misinformation, there's so much things going on, and yeah, you have to double down, right? And one of the big things I say, because I teach an annual review, not a CMA, but an annual review to a lot of my client or my agents, and if we can pour into that annual review when it's not the best call, right? For a long time, it was like, hey, you made a bit of a rough purchase, but your house only appreciated 50K this year, right? Those were the easy calls to make. But now it's like, hey, you bought at the like peak of the market.
Yeah.
Technically, your house has fallen, from that number, it's, 30, 40, $50,000 less. Okay. And so that sweet spot wasn't a first time home buyer thing. So we don't have a lot of people upside down, in my specific market, because they brought cash to the table, right? If you bring 200 grand because you sold your house for way more than it was worth, you put it into this one and you lost a little here, it's monopoly money, right? So having those conversations when it's needed is key, right? Don't refinance. Don't, freak out and have to sell your house to this investor who's just going to pay it off for you. Like, let's have a strategy. Let's go from there. I always talk to those people when we were buying those, when we were bidding $50,000, $100,000 over, right? And limiting inspections. I said, hey, like, we just need to get you into a home. Luckily, the interest rates were lower. And if something happens in your life and you can't live in that house anymore, like, we just need to be able to rent it, and break even so that you can hold on to it while it corrects. Because even the homes that you bought in 2008 at the peak of the market are worth 150, 200% more than they were today. Or
Yeah.
today they're worth 200% more. So if you just hold on to those assets, like, you're going to be okay, but you have to have a plan. So you have to be that advisor, right? I talk a lot about, we talk to our financial planners from the day we give them 25 grand to throw in the stock market blindly, right? We meet with them every single year, right? We also give them all of our contacts for referrals, right? I also built pretty steadily, sphere with my financial planner, who happens to be a good friend of mine. But like, we meet with those people. So as agents, like, we can help them manage a much larger, much higher appreciating asset in the home if we just reach out. And
Yeah.
if you do it consistently, they don't think that you're asking for a sale every time, right? So if you talk to them, hey, this is what's going on. How's your loan? How's your interest rate? Are we able to get that mortgage insurance off? Whatever. Like, I'm having that conversation as a professional. Like, what do you think happens the first time a question, or they raise their hand on that? Boom, here, talk to the lender that I sent you to when you bought it, or talk to this person. They're better equipped to help you with that situation. Right. So it's more referrals going out to my industry partners. I am stirring up conversations for my industry partners with my annual reviews. And so they, my lenders get 20 referrals from me a year. And it's multiple lenders, right? Multiple
Yeah.
relationships. So when they do get that one buyer that comes in, who do you think gets it? Me.
Yeah.
When they're sitting around talking to agents about their business and everyone's complaining about their broker or complaining about the market, they're like, hey, you should probably talk to Jeremy over at the Wolfpack. He might be able to help you. Right. So now those same industry partners are driving me agents as well. So it's a very, it's a system that works. But again, it's just trying to stir up business for as many people as I can. Cause then we go to insurance and then we go to contractors and what they want to do with their house. And then we go to equity use, right? Do you have anything earmarked for that equity? I have 3 daughters. I'm going to pay for a wedding and probably 3 college tuitions and all of those things. This equity could be a major player in that. And so just being that financial advisor when it comes to the home is a massive opportunity for us. And it doesn't have to be a past client, you know, just have to own a home. You'll probably be doing more than any other real estate agent in your market's doing for
Yeah, I love that, dude. I've always done that with my investors.
them.
Minimum annual review. Let's assess your portfolio, what your future goals are. Does it make sense to unload some of these 1031 these to a different project?
Yeah.
But I've never taken that to every client. And I
Mhm.
love that, dude. I mean, not only is it an excuse to have a conversation every year, but then, again, you're just aligning yourself to that authority figure.
Right. And especially for the newbies, right? You're having conversations about the stuff you need to have conversations for.
Yeah.
So it's practice. And that's where you start with the family members, the know, like, and trust people. That's how you find those raving fans out of the gate that'll refer you business, is you provide a serious piece of value that no real estate agent in the history has ever provided them outside of someone dropping a CMA off on their doorstep.
Yeah, my prediction is stuff like that's going to become that much more powerful because not every, but a huge percentage
Mm-hmm.
of agents I'm talking to, do they just want to freaking automate everything?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, automation is good, but if you allow it to replace the relationship, you're going to be in trouble.
Automation's going to replace
Yeah, yeah.
you.
Well, that's when we become a
Yeah.
commodity,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so then one last question, kind of on the production side. Then I want to get into kind of shift gears here, but I know it's a loaded question. None of us have a crystal ball, so nobody's going to hold you to this, or at least I won't hold you to this. But like, what's your prediction with like where we're headed as far as the real estate market? Like, what do you think this is going to look like over the next several years? I mean, are you one that thinks it's going to crash, or just kind of slightly correct, or just be slowed down?
That's a hard question to answer.
Yeah,
I think if we maintain our professionalism and as agents, we know what we're doing, we can see a slight correction. Here's the problem is that if we don't have tools in our tool belt to market the properties and have the patience to sell them for what they're worth, and we're just racing to lower and crash prices, we're crashing our own industry, right? Like it's not 20, and the part of the problem is 80% of the agents got in the industry over the last 5 years when it's been
yeah.
chaos, right? The skill set has been like dulled. Even the professionals, right? It was just speed to lead, like get everything out, do this, make sure you're covered here, make sure you have your docs, disclosures, boom, let's go. When's the keys, when's move-in day, let's go, right? And so we didn't have time to really sharpen our skills. The amount of agents I talked to that were in the business the last 5 years that don't even send, comps to a buyer that's buying a home is absolutely insane to me. Like I don't understand like what we're doing. Like, are we just going out there on feel and doing it? Yeah, in a cash situation where the guy's trying to lowball, we don't need to do it. But other than that, like you got to know, right? And you have to educate your client. So I think some of these skills are coming into play. Now, do we actually utilize these skills or do we fall for the AI trap and just let AI do that, spit out a number, not really have the real data behind it? And then all of a sudden we're like, well, I did my video and I did an open house and no one showed up and we don't have any showings. Let's lower the price 25K, right? That's not going to work. Like we will get in a race to the bottom. and
Yeah.
that's where I think it could crash. The other thing is if we have another major event, economic event, COVID, whatever, it could be the end. It could
World
change
War
this
Three.
drastically, right? Like, I mean, if we're just status quo, if we call what we're going through status quo, um, I think we'll be okay because people have extremely low interest rates. There will be some fallout from the higher interest rates that overbought, maybe did the, temporary buy downs and things like that. But I don't think it'll be '08 subprime stuff. Um, but it could be. I mean, that's the where we're teetering, right?
Yeah.
If there's a major event, because you know, economically we're in a very rough, scary position as consumers, in my opinion, as you say all the time, right? And so we can probably continue on this, balance of credit and debit and all this stuff. But if there's a major event, a COVID, war, whatever it could be, like I mean, it could go south pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. And it gets tough too. Like you said, okay, if we had control,
Mm,
and as you mentioned, there's a lot of agents in this industry that just don't get enough at bats and don't take it serious enough
mm,
to truly master the craft. But then you also have the flip side of that. I'm one that always, pivots. Like I adjust my niches based on the economic
yep.
and real estate climate. So like right
Mm,
now we're dealing with a lot of, 30-day plus lates,
mm,
divorces, probates, people
mm,
in fire sale situations. Yeah,
mm,
right. Where like for them to get an extra 20 to 30 grand equity, it's like, no, we have to get those things. Like if I have somebody this happened not too long ago. I mean, we're 3 weeks away from the
foreclosure.
auction date for
Yep.
closure date. Now it was still an equity sale. We didn't have to do a
Mm,
short sale, but they just waited too long, delayed too long. Maybe it was my fault because I got in touch with them too long. It was somebody I didn't know, just on the list.
yep.
But I was like, dude, like we only have one choice. We
Yep.
can't go to market. Like we got to go to an investor. I've got several dozen investors that we can trust. Right. I can bid it out to everybody. Can look at that to get the highest one, but it's going to be a low off. Like it's going to,
Mm.
but it's either that or you get nothing and foreclose.
And get rid of your equity, right?
Yeah,
Like I
exactly.
mean, and I had some of that even, there was a lot less of that, but people would get in personal injury issues and whatever. And so that's the part of the market that we can sustain, right? Divorce is going up. Hopefully it doesn't continue
Yeah.
to go up. But that's the part of the market we can sustain. Probate stuff typically will have some equity in it. People typically don't move and then die shortly thereafter. So I think that's like a part of the market that's already there. Now, if the divorce rate increases and that kind of stuff could happen, I think it's the part that I think will skew it is what we're doing here and what we do moving forward, right? If we see the interest rate come down and touch five, and then we're out all of a sudden back to multiple offers, throwing stuff out there, no inspections, all of that stuff. I don't think that'll be a good situation.
Yeah.
I think that'll eventually catch up to us because all those people that are basically, I say this all the time, like people that buy new builds always want a new house every 2 years. And before we'd get that call and it'd be like, well, we want to sell it. And I'm like, well, we can sell it for $20,000 more than you bought it for because the builder is still building right there. Like, and people want a new house. So, that's kind of the situation. But those people that got stuck or unhappy and pushed into these homes, if they take the bait and they go and overspend again, I think that's where it'll catch up to us.
Yep. All right, man. So switching gears, dude. So your dad owns a brokerage.
Hmm.
You made the decision to pivot your business to EXP. Yeah, I'm curious of because I'm guessing there's an opportunity there to eventually take over your dad's brokerage,
Yeah,
at some
he
point.
wasn't the owner; he was a managing broker.
Okay.
So he owned a brokerage, merged into another company that was about 1,200 agents, a transaction shop, and he was the managing broker. There was another employing broker over him,
Okay. So then what
but
led
there
you
was
to,
still opportunity for me
yeah,
to be a
okay.
managing broker after he retired, which he is now retired.
Yeah. So, okay. You're, at this, well, I mean, number one, what enticed you about EXP? And then why go? Because you got two great options. Why
Hmm.
go the EXP option?
Yeah. Ultimately, I saw what my dad was doing, 24-hour hotline litigation, the kind of stress that comes with being a brokerage, managing broker, whatever. And I knew that was coming down the pike. I was still doing 50 transactions a year at the time, 47, 48, whatever. And I knew that his salary wouldn't replace 40 hours of my
Okay.
time, for my business. So I went to the employing broker. I said, "Hey, what if I got into recruiting training? Whatever. I'm a coach at heart." Like I kind of had that mindset, and he was like, "Nope, we're good." And I knew who they had, and I was not a fan ultimately. So that was my opportunity. I had met Mike Sherrard on a Zoom call during COVID, talking about social media, talking about selling, houses in the worst market in North America, all his things. And so I had started following him. I'd been on a couple explain calls, so I knew everything that was going on with the XP, and it was explained to me in a way that made sense. So I was able to jump into that, and I told him. I mean, my dad was fine. Like again, a hard conversation with my dad. I didn't know what he was going to say, and he just said, "Jeremy, you've always worked harder at marketing your business than me. Like, if that's it, go for it." And so I did.
Was there was there anything that once you joined EXP, like in a positive way, surprised you, shocked you as far as the opportunity that you maybe weren't really focusing on when you first made the move?
Yeah, I mean, my goal was to be Elizabeth Riley, right? Have 10, 10 icon awards, which she didn't have at the time, but she was well on her way. Like I was like, oh, I'm just gonna get 10 icon awards. I'm still making more money than when I was at the transaction shop based on my splits and a couple other things. And so that was my goal. And then I was like, well, if I just produce for 10 years and then I switch to agent attraction and coaching, like I'm at zero, right? So then I realized I had to go like this, and that's how would get to my goal of being able to retire when I'm 48 from production, the hustle, so to
That's
speak.
the goal. So you got
Yeah,
7 years left.
yeah,
That's awesome, dude. Well, you're well on track to hit
yeah.
it.
I mean, maybe sooner at this rate. I mean, I love the agent piece and helping other agents, and again, goes back to me liking helping other people build their businesses.
Yeah, the thing that shocked me, well, not shocked me most, but that it wasn't a selling feature to get me on. But
Hmm.
then when I jumped in, seeing the opportunity of is the stock,
Yeah,
because I was like, oh, dude, it's nice, icing on the cake. Nobody's ever given me anything free in my life, so that's kind of cool.
yeah.
But then once I jumped in and just meeting other people that have really taken that thing to life-changing numbers. I was having a conversation yesterday with a buddy of mine, joined EXP in 2017, Icon that year. So he
Hmm.
did the math with me. He's like, back then it was a dollar, I don't know, 21. And then that same day, I think it was like $10.22 or whatever.
Yeah,
But we did the math on that 16,600 because you get your
yeah.
16,000 icon and then 600 of from when you cap in your first deal each year. So do that 16,600 today is worth 3,400 and some $1,000.
Hmm.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
So, and seeing this, man, it's just like, it's just like, all right, dude, this is something. I mean, it's an opportunity I didn't see where you can really, dude, if you want to hit it hard.
right.
I mean, I had no idea what Elizabeth Riley's 10 years in a row of hitting that,
Right.
but
Well, and I mean, and it wasn't $1.21 when she started at the company either. So
yeah,
that's where, and the stocks were different and that kind of stuff. And I mean, that's one of the things I love about it is that stock side hasn't changed one bit since I've been here. Right. It's still a cash value based. It's not based on this, stock price or anything like that. It's a cash value, award for, those things.
yeah. So then, all right, man. So initial goal was, hey, I'm just going to icon, focus
Hmm.
on production. Then I'm going to focus on agent attraction. Yeah. But then you're like, well, that doesn't get me, I'm having to start over.
Right.
So then, now how long have you been here?
4.5 years.
Okay. So 4.5 years, in addition to hitting icon every year.
Hmm.
So still doing extremely strong production. You've also been able to grow 225 plus agents. Like how many at today?
226.
Okay, so 226. I knew it was around 225.
Yeah.
So, um, like, how do you? First of all, like, how do you balance it? because that's very difficult, right? Because it's like,
Yep.
well, got, I mean, doing 50 deals a year or close to that is a
Hmm.
lot. Yeah, right. Then I got to make room and time for this. Plus, you're married, you got three kids, you got a life outside of real estate. Like,
Yep.
at least initially, I know it might be different today, but how did you allocate time?
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do with my prospecting isn't a 2, 5, 6 hour thing, right? My
Yeah.
phone continues to ring. I just, you know, I line them up and knock them down. I take care of the people in front of me, right? You have to be in those relationships, be in communication with the clients that, choose to work with you. And if they have a great experience, they're going to tell someone else. So first and foremost, you have to focus on that experience that you're providing, right? I did hire a TC. They handle a ton of my stuff, right? They set up photography, line up, everything on the pre-list side. They're there to support. Contract comes in, they're distributing everything, right? I have to answer probably 2 or 3 questions, regularly in a contract that's not just to the client. So it allows me to be, one on one with the client. It gives me a lot of time. I'm freed up for, agent meetings, agent trainings, calls, all the things. And so that's a big one, right? Is I don't have to go and hunt for, production is still my main source of income, but I don't have to do a lot to, massage that. And
Yep.
then, another one that you probably will scratch your head at is we homeschool our kids, right? My wife's home. I help with math. But that is a big deal because I can walk upstairs and give my kids a hug. I can eat lunch with them. I can have a conversation with them. When I'm done with work, I can, sit on the couch if they're here. Now they're pretty busy with their activities and stuff. But that was a major difference for me, right? As opposed to having to quit work, drive across town, get them from daycare or school or whatever, and then come back, right? That's a lot of drive time. That's a lot of wasted time. And so that's a huge component to it as well to make me stay connected with them.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, like one thing that, and again, it's obviously that we bring on, it's if they want to focus on
Hmm.
growing agents for residual income, cool, let's help you. If they don't, okay, cool, let's help you just go out there and become a top producer. So, but for those that want to, like a thing that I'm really obsessed with is okay, like setting a target,
Yep.
because especially when balancing production. So I'm like, man, if you give me 3.5 hours a week,
Hmm.
we can start adding two a month. That two a month over time,
Yep.
can result into a lot. If you're recruiting
Hmm.
two a month to year that you are personally sponsoring. So is that something kind of like you did of just like time blocking off like 5 hours a week? In the beginning, or I mean, did you have like dedicated blocked out time, or was it just kind of when you were able to get to it?
I do everything I possibly can to kind of block off. What I do is I have themes for days, right? So I have, you know, under contract days. Typically Monday, I'm like focused on my under contract deals, like, or my active clients, right? I'm nurturing them, making sure that's good to go, making sure everybody's comfortable. So that's a theme for day one. And then I have an agent attraction one where it's like, okay, we're just going to go, go to an event or engage with other agents or, whatever that looks like. And then I have, my pipeline day where I'm focusing on the people that are 0, 3, 6 months out, right? Touching them, having conversations with them, making sure their searches are set up, seeing if they're active on the searches, making sure they're good with the lender, whatever that looks like. And then Thursday's like, okay, shark hunting. Like I'm going to go look for, bigger. I'm going to talk to former brokers and my old brokers and, just those kind of things. Other managing brokers in the community, right? The managing broker of, Sotheby's was in my wedding, so like I have good relationships with people throughout just in the 12 and a half years I've done it and just peers and friends and so on. So just touching base, keeping in contact with those people, right? And then Friday is, what am I doing for the weekend? Those kind of production things. So that's how I kind of block it out. And then I'm able to sprinkle time in so that if, a call cancels or there's a gap in calls or whatever, then I can drop. That's when I focus on the theme of the day.
Yep. And I know that I know this because we had you as a guest speaker, like teaching all our agents last week about your recruiting agent attraction strategy. But I was watching, listen, don't, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I know that you've kind of replicated, and we talked about this, hinted this earlier in the podcast of, okay, how I got buyers and sellers is how I'm getting agents, right? So it's same thing. So when you're saying reaching out to these people, having conversations, it's really just, hey, how can I help you? And developing that connection, developing that relationship, funneling them in, keeping content in front of them, you know, networking,
Mm,
you know,
I think the biggest thing that us as EXP like growth leaders lack is the ability just to plug people into the resources we have. Like it's crazy to me when people call me, like I'll have my leaders call me and be like, this agent wants me to help him with this and help him with that. I'm like, dude, the Social Agent Academy. Like,
yeah,
send them there. Tell them to go to the Tuesday call, right? Or whatever that looks like. And so I think that that's probably kind of my secret weapon is I know a lot of that stuff and I've been on a lot of the Tuesday calls and all of that so I can direct people, right? I'm a tour guide for their success and I don't have to do it all, right? Because the majority this business is half marketing and half execution, right? I can help you all day with execution. And if I can't help you because you're across the country or in a different country, I can at least make a connection to someone that can, right? Because I have those connections and I've studied the model. I've built relationships with corporate. Today alone, I've talked to 3 people in corporate that, aren't traditional people that I should be talking to in flow because of other agents needing something or whatever. And so I think that being that connector again, like, hey, I can't help you with this, but go to this is the biggest thing that we struggle with, especially when we get further down in line. Because I have Mike and Louie and myself, and then I have leaders that have agents. And so, some of them are 5, 6, 7 tiers away from Mike and his value stack. And so sometimes those leaders get that call, and I'm like, hey, like, there's a Thursday Q&A session on social media every single week. There's an entire thing on that specific thing in the Social Agent Academy. Send them there. Like it's
yeah,
one call, one, message. So I think that's the biggest piece that helps me save time as well and allows me to connect with these agents. Right. I mean, I have agents on my 4, 5, 6 tiers reaching out to me directly.
yeah,
That's how I want it. Like I just want to be a resource to people.
yeah. Well, you definitely have that heart
Mhm.
to help and serve and support, you know. What do you think is, well, all right. So let me frame this a slightly different way. And I get it because it took me 10 years. Like from knowing about this model to actually discovering and like being open-minded enough to see it for what it is, to like be like, okay, like dude, this is the best thing I've ever seen.
Mhm.
Now I'm so pissed off at myself every single day for not being open-minded enough and smart enough to really look at this model for what it is 10 years ago. I just had my judgments, my preconceived notions, my, you know, because if I joined it 10 years ago, my life would look a lot different than it does today.
Mhm.
But best time to plant a tree 10 years ago, not using that as an excuse, second best time today. So like once I got it, I was like, boom, I'm done. I just went, dude, dropped everything else I was doing. I just went and went hard.
And I love that. And I remember having conversations about you with Mike multiple years ago, right? And
Yeah.
it's just like, dude, he'll see it, and here
Yeah.
we are, right?
But
So,
what do you think it is? Because I know what it is for me, but you have so many conversations with so many realtors, whether it be about EXP or other things. Like,
mm,
what do you think the underlying reason is that, you why like you got it, I eventually got it, but others can't see it?
I think a lot of it's the approach, right? And you'll say this, I'll say the same thing, like the way Mike approaches it. He's like, hey, this is what it is. He explains it in a different way. Like my cousin is a growth leader at the company for the southeast part of the country, and she mentioned EXP to me in kind of passing, and she didn't really want to push it, but she just said you should really look at it. And then I wasn't on board until I actually like had looked at the numbers, had everything laid out, understood what revenue share could be, understood what the stocks could be, understood the savings on the CRM and the website and all of those things. Because that's the biggest thing that I find is people at transaction shops, which is where I came from, right? I was paying $250 a transaction and $25 a month. Like I was paying nothing, you know, and but I had to pay for my website and, pay for nothing, get nothing, right? And so I had to pay my health insurance when I came over, like got cut in a third, and I had better coverage, right? Because of income and all of that. So I think there's multiple ways. And I think what people do is when they're talking to someone about the opportunity, they focus on the reasons that they joined, right? Well, I learned pretty quickly that I joined because of the Icon Award, and that didn't relate to 97% of the population out there, because 2.5, 3% of the company icons, right? And so then I had to ultimately understand the model and be able to listen to people, again, back to the psychology, and pull from that. And I learned that 100% from Mike Sherrard, the number one personal attractor all time, until you pass him, Josh.
Yeah.
Which I'm cheering for you. So I can't wait to bust him on that one. But um, like I think that that's the difference. Is okay. Like why would you come? For instance, if someone came at you with the stock, you'd be like, whatever, like it's
Yeah.
fine. Owning, renting, whatever. It's a necessary evil to hang your license, right? If they didn't explain it the way you were ready to hear it that day, it wouldn't have resonated with you. So I think that that's the reason that people struggle, is because they try and go at that angle. I mean, just like people that struggle to sell houses. If you can't hear what your client wants and you're like, this is the best deal in the market, this is awesome, it has everything you want, like, and you're shoving it down their throat, they're less likely to offer on it. They're less likely to follow your direction and offer. So I think that that's the main reason. And ultimately, I just don't think people really understand finances and income,
Yeah.
to be
I
frank,
agree with that.
like residual income, those kind of things. Because here I am. Yes, it's been a grind to get to 225 while selling 40, 50 houses a year. But when the market shifts a little bit and I don't have a closing for a month, like I got the equivalent of a $700,000 closing coming into my bank account with RevShare,
Yeah.
and it's a little bit more market diverse, right? Because I have agents in Lancaster, PA that are in multiple bids still every single transaction. So that market's still kind of humming. They're doing their thing, while here we're lot slower. So I think that that's ultimately the biggest disconnect, is why people should look at the opportunity and not just listening to what they're saying and matching.
Yeah. I was, my like knowing what I know now, if I could do it all over again, yeah, I would have joined EXP day I heard about it. I would have made myself hear about it sooner,
Mm-hmm.
right? In 2009, because I was here, same market, like when Brian Cohen, he got it,
Yep.
right? I didn't have awareness for it for a little bit longer after that. But, at the highest level, though, the biggest regret that I have or learning lesson was, and part of this is probably getting in the industry at 23. But when you're in your 20s, even 30s,
Yeah.
like you just think you're like, invincible. You're never going to want to stop. You got all this energy, but I didn't think about long, like, where do I want to be in 20 years? Where do I want to be in 30 years? Like, what's exit strategy look like? What's
Yep.
my plan for exit? Like you said, I didn't understand finances. I didn't,
Mm-hmm.
it took me a long time to learn those lessons. And, but
And I think, I mean, also when you step back and look at it, the opportunity that you are in now with Mike being your partner wasn't available then,
yeah, that's what
right?
my
And
wife tells me every day
yep.
because she has to hear from me every day of like,
Yeah.
oh, I should have, yeah, because I beat
Yeah.
myself up more than
Yeah.
anybody could, but she's always, yeah, but you wouldn't have been with Mike then. You wouldn't have
It's
had the
going to be
same
very
opportunity to,
different, and
yeah.
he's changed the game a ton, right? And he'll
Yeah,
continue to do it. So,
yeah, I'm a big believer, I'm a believer, believe everything happens for a reason, All right, man. So quick question on your coaching. Is your coaching just available for your agent partners, or do you like have it available for like paid clients too?
I've just made it available for my agent partners right now.
Okay.
I was I was going to go down that road, but also, like, again, stretch too thin. Like, I don't want to be going on road shows and selling a course and doing all of that. So it ultimately is a very specific to my business, dealing with people, psychology based. Like, anyone can roll it out and do it, and it just is a lot easier that way. I've sold a few, here and there, but I'm not actively trying to sell it. And what that does, it does allow me to incorporate the Social Agent Academy.
Yeah.
right? I didn't, but on purpose, I didn't recreate an entire social media pillar. I have a pillar that says, hey, focus on one social media brand at a time, so you get focused and outwardly engaging and spend your time on there and do that. But if when you're building Instagram, go to the Social Agent Academy. That's another course that I don't own, but every agent that partners with me gets for free. So that's how I kind of utilize that.
Yeah, what I love about it now, you didn't have awareness. I didn't have awareness with this, even though I've only been at EXP for 8, 9 months. But something that did roll out recently, co-sponsorship.
Yep.
And I think that co-sponsorship, outside of just the creation of the model, I think that this is the second best thing to ever exist, dude.
Right.
At least within this
And
model, it's
and
like
here's
having
the
two.
deal. Like for you, who's kicking yourself for not getting in it earlier, like this is our opportunity.
Yep.
This is the new generation of EXP growth leaders opportunity because up at the co-sponsor, up at the upper levels, the big dogs, it's giving every agent's worth two,
Yep.
right?
Well, and let me
So
correct something there. When I say that I wish I joined 10 years ago, it's not because I think that the opportunity 10 years
yeah,
ago is
for sure.
better than today. It's just with I have 10 years of momentum and results. I think right now, and I don't have anything to compare against to, but when people tell me, oh, it's harder today, I'm like, psh, like to me, it's the easiest product I've ever sold in my life. The
Right.
momentum, the growth, the opportunities, I think are bigger now than ever before. And so if anybody took that out of context, I just want to make sure that, I wasn't correcting that. And then for those that are like, oh, well, you should have gotten earlier. I'm like, okay, well, we got
You
Japan
never
rolling
know.
out next month. We
Yeah.
got, North or South Korea that just launched. We're in 28 countries or launch a new country every single month. I'm like, there's still so much insane growth opportunity. That's insane. But
Might
with
have
the,
a little bit of fallout from the recent news.
yeah,
Monster brokerage. So, there's always opportunity. And I think the beauty of the model is like agent numbers and agent count are one thing, but once you really get into it and you solidify yourself, like you can really focus on making a non-producer a capper, right? And that's really what we're after in this is to help people change their lives, right? If you're a capper, you're getting close to six figures, like that's kind of everyone's goal. So if we can help everyone reach that, goal with our expertise and our knowledge, then that's great, right? And if you're a capper, you're in the top probably 15%, 20% of agents anyways. So I think that that's the cool part about it is you're able to focus and dial in on your areas of expertise and help people and then, connect outside people, right? All over the place.
yeah, yeah. And then with co-sponsorship, like before, it'd be like somebody maybe listen to this podcast. Well, Josh, I'm torn. I really like you and I want to partner with you at EXP, but man, I love everything Jeremy does too.
Mm.
Now that now with co-sponsorship, dude, they can have both of us.
Right. And
It's
it
like they
didn't have to
get
perfectly align,
yeah, it's like they can
6 years
have
ago. Yeah.
full free access to Mike Sherrard, who's the best in the world at AI, social media. They can have you with all your
Mm-hmm.
amazing attraction-based, growth methods or sphere of influence. Yeah, right. They have me with whatever you want to classify me as being an expert in. Yeah, right. Now you
Yeah.
get the best of all worlds. And for those that are interested, whether they want to talk to you, and maybe it's not even about co-sponsorship, but just
Mm-hmm.
make sure everybody has awareness that you have the ability to co-sponsorship. But if somebody's listening to this, watching this, they want to follow you, they want to have a connection with you about learning more about what a partnership looks like with you at EXP, like where the best place or places to do that at?
Yeah. The Real Estate Agent Playbook is my brand. So the RE Agent Playbook on Instagram and the Real Estate Agent Playbook on YouTube are probably the best, depending on short form, long form. You can find me over anywhere. It's just a wealth of free content is essentially what's out there. So
Yeah, and anybody that's watching or listening, if you just scroll below to the show notes or the description, I'll have Jeremy's contact information, those links right below, so you can just click on them and connect. So, all right, dude, one last question I like to ask every podcast guest as we wind this thing down. Okay, been at this for some time, had good success, great success, exceptional success through this journey. But if Jeremy today, knowing everything you know now, could go sit on a park bench with your younger self right when you got into real estate and give yourself a couple pieces of advice that you feel would have just fast forwarded this success trajectory, knowing everything you know now, what would that advice look like?
I think the only thing that I truly regret, which a lot of people will say, is like be ultra organized with the CRM. right? Because I did lose access to Facebook in the process of this growth, and you don't own that list by any means, and it can be taken overnight when someone hacks in and does that. So that's probably the biggest thing is have a CRM, have that all organized, be able to work in flow. And then I mean, the truth is own your business, right?
Yeah.
Like the brokerage doesn't matter. I loved my broker too. And had my dad come over here when my cousin Lisa mentioned it, like he'd be making 10 times more money than he's making now in retirement, just residually, so I think that you have to take a look at all the opportunities on the table and not worry about whatever everybody else is, because this is coming big time now. You're really about the people you surround yourself with. And our organization continues to add, monsters like Josh. And when I first came in, I was a big fish, right? At my brokerage, 1,200 agents. From January to April, I finished that year 18th at that brokerage in volume, right? And I only worked for 4 months, came over here, but then all of a sudden I'm talking to the Batista twins and Shane and Nikki Wilson and, all these amazing professionals, Kyle Powers, and it was able to level up. And it was a collaboration, situation because we weren't in the same markets, right? I have great relationships with people in my market, but there's still that kind of secret sauce feel until you get into the wolf pack and you're like, okay, I got all these people, right? Joshua came in. It's like, okay, we'll let him get set up. We'll let him get rolling. But now we have a pretty good relationship. We're on calls all the time. We talk, we text, we co-sponsor agents. So I think it's just the most collaborative, welcoming group, no matter where you're at. Because even now, some people are like, Jeremy, like I'm 0 deals and you're 50 a year. That's a huge gap. I appreciate you coaching me, but like I got to have somebody to, you know, complain to, So, but that's you'll see at EXPCon, like they build those relationships and those relationships last and they start their little, groups and things like that. And so just an amazing find your people is really the goal, and make sure that you're financially being rewarded for being in business around those people.
Yep, 100% powerful stuff, man. And Jeremy, truly appreciate you taking time away from your busy business, family to be here and share all this amazing information today, man. It truly means a lot, brother.
Yeah, dude, thanks so much for having me. It's a bucket list item over here.
Yeah, well, honored having you on. And those watching and listening, we truly appreciate all of you, all of your support. Keep crushing it, keep kicking ass, and we will see you next time. Peace.